All right, hey everyone. So today we are going through the pathway of blood through the kidneys. Um, if I were you, some things that we have to keep separate are, well, some supplies that you might need would be obviously printing off the kidney from Schoology that's on there. You should also have two colored pencils, a red one and a yellow one, maybe a highlighter. The only thing that you really need to highlight is a small part that I highlighted here. The biggest thing with the kidney is that we need to keep separate where blood is going and where urine is going. So obviously yellow is going to be where urine is going and red is going to be where blood is going, and that's what we're going to add to today when we are doing this pathway of blood. So what I would do is I would stop and I would pause it right here and I would write down everything that is on here because I labeled all the lines for you. We're going to talk about some of them and I'll go through the other ones before we talk about everything. But yeah, this one down here, which doesn't fit, that's medullary pyramid, just so you know that, and I'll talk about that in just a minute too. But I would pause this, I would add all the lines that are on there. There's a few lines that I actually added, like collecting ducts, calyces, renal cortex, medullary pyramids, and I think renal pelvis over here. So, oh, and nephron up here, you're going to want that. So pause this, write all that stuff down. Also color in where the yellow is. We're eventually going to talk about urine flow, and that will be pretty important when we talk about that. But I'm going to go on, and I'm going to talk about some of the things that we're not going to talk about with blood flow. So first thing is I highlighted this green right around here. This is called a medullary pyramid. That's the bottom word that's under medullary under there. There's a bunch of these, and I can outline them for you, but I only highlighted one to kind of show you what those are. What the medullary pyramids are, as you can see, kind of in this pyramid shape. That's where these arteries and veins are going that we're going to talk about today for blood flow. It happens in many different spots. We're going to work with this one right here today, but you can see that there's all these different medullary pyramids to disperse that blood and clean all of it out as efficiently and as effectively as the kidney can to get rid of those wastes that are in our blood and then produce urine in the end. You'll also want to know that on your sheet, these white lines, those are going to be veins, and these darker lines, those are going to be arteries. Okay, so those are some important things to know about what we're talking about today. Now let's look at some of the stuff that's labeled on here that we're not going to talk about today. One that we talked about yesterday, the renal cortex. Renal cortex is the outside part of the kidney. If you're going to dissect a kidney, which you're not going to be able to see because we don't have time and I'm pretty bummed out about it, this is actually a lighter color. And then where you have this medullary pyramid where these arteries and veins are going around, this is actually darker inside the kidney. Okay. Two other things. This is for urine formation, is that urine actually eventually forms in this nephron that we're going to talk about today because blood goes into the nephron. But this urine has to be kind of funneled somewhere. So the first place it's funneled down through are through collecting ducts. And then it goes to these calyces, which are cup shaped, which literally just collect the urine from the collecting ducts. And then they funnel that urine down to the renal pelvis and then down to the ureter down here, which is going to go to the urinary bladder. Let's see. Okay, so then the next thing that we have to talk about are these three vessels that are outside the kidney. If you looked at a kidney and the question was how many vessels are outside of that kidney, you'd say three, because we have the renal artery, we have the renal vein, and we have the ureter. We need to talk about where stuff is coming from to go to these things and where the rest of it is going to. So these two are obviously going to be concerned with blood. This one is going to be concerned with urine. Let's start with the ureter. The ureter eventually, and we'll talk about this later on a different day, is that this urine in your ureter goes down and it funnels to the urinary bladder. That's an R, sorry. Then, when we're talking about renal artery and renal vein, these are really important because this is where blood flow is going into the kidney and then away. We know that from the heart is taking blood away through arteries. What is the major artery that leaves the heart that brings blood out of the body to the rest of the systemic circulation or to the rest of the system of the bodies? That's from the aorta. So blood from the aorta eventually is going to go to this renal artery, and that's how it enters into the kidney. We're going to talk about how it goes through all these arteries and veins, and eventually it comes out of the renal vein to go back to the heart. What blood vessel takes blood back to the heart? Well, that's the vena cava. So then this blood is going to go to the vena cava. All right, so I'm going to grab my red color pencil, because now what we're going to do is we're going to be showing blood flow. Blood flow through the arteries, back through the veins to go in the kidney, through the arteries, out of the kidney, through the veins. When we're talking about, and you just looked at blood vessels, that we go from arteries to arterioles to capillaries. When we get down to the capillaries, we're talking about the nephron. So the nephron is a place that we're going to change from arteries and then going back to get out of there through veins. Okay. All right, so let's start. So eventually we're going to have blood that is going to enter through the renal artery. And I'm going to put just numbers by here, but we're going to look at blood flow, and I'm going to have it written down. Maybe you want to write that down too, or keep that somewhere close to you, because it's really important when we talk about blood flow. So the first place that it goes, the first place that it enters into the kidney, that is through the renal artery. When we're going through all of this darker stuff, which is our arteries, every time we come to kind of like a fork in the road, that's when we change names, okay? So we go to renal artery, and we're like, oh, we have all these pathways that we can go. And this is kind of nice because it segments that renal artery into all these different medullary pyramids, and it is called the segmental artery. So the second place it goes is that it segments into one of the segmental arteries, and it's going to go to one of these medullary pyramids. We're going to look at this one right here, okay? So then we come to eventually another fork in the road where we're going to go here. This right here, that is called your lobar artery. We're going to see 3 different arteries and 3, well, really 2 different veins that I want you to know about with the word lobar. It's lobar, interlobar, and interlobular. As we get smaller, the word gets fancier. So that's how I remember that, is that we always have the word lobar, then we go to interlobar, there's one in between there, and then you go to interlobular, which is going to take you to the capillaries or to the nephron in the end, okay? So that third place we're going, lobar artery. Come to another fork in the road. We're going to go up this way, which is called the interlobar artery. So that's the 4th blood vessel that we're looking at. Then we're going up, and you can see that we're going on those pyramids, right? And this nice thing about this next name is that we're going to, what I would say, you can say top here, but you can say bottom here of the pyramid, whatever you want. Bottom of the pyramid, but that has an arc, right? So when it arcs on there, because it's going around that kidney, we call that the arcuate artery. Just pretty nice name to help you remember order from these things. Then we're going up to this small artery right here, which is the fancy term, the interlobular artery, which is going to take us through this nephron. The nephron would be the 7th place where blood is flowing. The nephron is the most important unit for filtration in the kidney, which that is its function. One of the function of the kidney is filtration of blood, right? So the nephron is really important. We're going to talk about the nephron in detail next time we are so-called together, right? Okay, so we've gone through all the arteries. Now we're in what we'd call the capillaries of our kidneys. We need our blood flow to come back through our veins. So we said these dark spots are arteries, and that's going to go, and you can see this interlobular artery is connected to that. Goes through this nephron. It's going to come back through this smaller blood vessel that we're going to see, but we're going to call these veins now. And I just put my vein information over here because I felt like it was getting kind of crowded around here, so you could just see it better. So those little veins that are connected to the white here, like you can see with this one, this is connected to this vein. That is called it's the same way right here. So we did interlobular artery, nephron, interlobular vein. We're going to go across this arc again. Guess what vein that's called? It is called the arcuate vein. So that pyramid where it arcs like that, that goes through the arcuate vein. Then we're going to come back down and we're going to go on the other side of the pyramid because we're trying to bring this blood out. And that is in the interlobar vein, which is labeled over here, interlobar vein. This eventually, we'd say, okay, it goes through the lobar and segmental. I'm not going to have you know that, but eventually all that blood is going to go out the renal vein. This is deoxygenated blood. This is clean blood. This is going to the heart in order to pick up oxygen through the vena cava. Sorry, so I should have numbered those. So I got 7 nephron, 8 is our interlobular vein going across that arc, which is 9, the arcuate vein, which is going down the pyramid, 10, the interlobar vein, eventually to 11, going out your renal vein. So I'm just going to go through it one more time kind of quickly so you know blood flow, and this is how you should know this, is that it is entering the kidney through the renal artery, going through the segmental artery, going through the lobar, interlobar artery, going across that arc to the arcuate artery, going up to the nephron, through the interlobular artery, around through the nephron, getting filtered out, coming back through the interlobular vein, going across the arc through the arcuate vein, and then down the side of that pyramid, the interlobar vein, and then eventually out the renal vein to bring that back to the vena cava. That is blood flow. Now, this is on, I'm just going to switch sheets. This is on your, on one of your slides as the pathway of blood. I forget it if it has this. I should probably have looked before I did this. But all the things we said already in there, going on the artery, aorta, renal artery, segmental, lobar, interlobar, arcuate, interlobular, going to the nephron. Now, all this stuff that I outlined right here, these are parts of a nephron. And if I were to ask you pathway of blood, you would want to know these things. And we're going to talk about them tomorrow. So it doesn't make sense right now, but tomorrow it should, or sorry, whatever, the next day we have class, is that we have the afferent arterial. So when we're talking about this, we already have heard the word afferent. Afferent is the first one going towards, like if you're talking about afferent neurons, going towards the brain. We're going to say the brain right now is the glomerulus. Sorry, glomerulus. That's how you say that word. Okay, so you go to the glomerulus. Now you're going away from it, so we use efferent arterial. And then you go through the, what we call the partibular capillaries and the vasta recta. Then going back through all those things in the vein. All those things are nephron. So interlobular again, the arcuate, the interlobar, to the renal vein, and to the vena cava. This is something that you definitely want to know. Okay? All right, that's it today. We'll tackle a nephron next time. And if you're a little confused on this, nephrons are a little kind of crazy also. It's really just a lot of terminology that you have on here. But you should be all right with that information. All right, have a great day. Bye.